Did you know, in the darkest pages of European history, there lived a woman so powerful and so cruel that her name became a symbol of bloodlust, vanity, and madness. She was Countess Elizabeth Báthory, who lived in Hungary at the end of the 16th century, forever remembered as the Blood Countess or the Blood Lady of the Carpathians. Her story is not just a legend, it is a true tale, recorded in the royal archives of the Habsburg court. A story so horrific that even 4 centuries later, it still chills the blood of anyone who dares to recall it. Elizabeth Báthory was born in 1560 into one of the most powerful noble families in Central Europe. She had royal blood, descended from dukes and kings, and from childhood was taught that her blood was purer than all others. But her youth was far from peaceful. She suffered from epileptic fits, and during those seizures, servants would use animal blood as a folk remedy to calm her. Perhaps from that moment, a twisted belief began to take root in her young mind, that blood could heal and grant strength. At only 15, Elizabeth married Count Ferenc Nadasdy, a celebrated warrior who was often away at war. As a wedding gift, he gave her a castle on a fog-covered hill, Kościce Castle, the fortress that would later become a chamber of horrors. When her husband was gone, Elizabeth ruled the estate with absolute power. Outwardly, she was cultured, intelligent, fluent in several languages, and dazzlingly beautiful. But behind the cold stone walls of Kościce, she became a monster in human form. It all began with a seemingly trivial incident. At least, that's how the legend tells it. One day, while a maid was brushing her hair, the girl accidentally pulled too hard. Enraged, Elizabeth slapped her so violently that the girl's blood splattered onto her hand. Later, when Elizabeth wiped it off, she fancied that the skin beneath looked whiter and smoother. From that day onward, she became obsessed with a horrifying idea that the blood of virgins whispered that screams echoed from the castle every night, and that at dawn, wagons left the gates carrying strange, heavy sacks. Poor village girls invited to serve the countess never returned home. When her supply of servants ran low, Elizabeth turned to noble families, opening a finishing school for young aristocratic ladies, teaching them etiquette and grace. Their parents sent them eagerly, and they too disappeared. She had a circle of loyal accomplices, her maids, Dorothea, Ilona, Katerina, and the stable hand, Janos. Together they abducted, tortured, and disposed of bodies. Some nights they hung the victims on hooks, slit their throats, and let their blood fill a massive bath where Elizabeth soaked in crimson warmth. A witness later testified that Elizabeth kept a journal listing all her victims, 612 names in total. If that number is true, she remains the most prolific female serial killer in recorded history. Eventually, her crimes could no longer be hidden. A local priest, after hearing a servant's confession, wrote a letter to King Matthias II of Hungary. At first, the king refused to believe it. Elizabeth was a noblewoman, a relative of the royal family, immensely influential. But as the rumors grew louder, he finally ordered an investigation. On December 30th, 1610, soldiers stormed Kostitsa Castle. What they found was a nightmare made real. Corpses lay scattered in the cellar, some burned, some frozen, and some still alive but mutilated, moaning softly in the dark. The walls were stained with dried blood, and the air was thick with the stench of decay mixed with perfume. In Elizabeth's bathing room, they found a large tub still filled with fresh blood. When captured, Elizabeth showed no fear. Dressed in crimson robes, she stood tall and declared, "I have done only what is necessary to keep the beauty God gave me." Her servants were tried and tortured. They confessed to every horror: the beatings, the mutilations, the laughter of their mistress as the girls screamed for mercy. They were executed by beheading and burning before the public. Elizabeth herself, protected by her noble blood, was never put to death. Instead, she was condemned to life imprisonment inside her own castle. The authorities sealed her in her chamber with brick walls, leaving only a small slit through which food could be passed. In that eternal darkness, she was left alone, with nothing but her own madness. She remained there for 4 years. Then one morning in 1614, a guard peered through the opening and found her lying lifeless on the stone floor, eyes wide open. No one knew if she died of hunger, illness, or insanity, but on her hand there was a dry streak of blood, as if even in her final dream she was still reaching for youth. After her death, villagers refused to bury her in their cemetery, terrified her spirit would return. Her body was buried in secret. No one knows where. Even today, locals say that on nights when the moon turns red, laughter echoes from the ruins of Kostitsa, and the scent of iron and roses drifts through the wind. Centuries later, Elizabeth Báthory's legend inspired the myth of the vampire. Many believe it was she, not Dracula, who first bathed in blood to seek immortality. Did you know, in the world of power and beauty, the obsession with eternal youth can sometimes consume the soul? And sometimes, the fairest face hides the darkest thirst.